Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to All Things Dating and Relationships. I am so sorry that we are running a little bit late tonight. We have Levy on the Space Coast, and we have our special guest who is unfortunately not able to join us on video, but we have Dr. Nancy Wall on audio. Hello, Nancy, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Hello, everybody.
Like I said, I apologize for going on a little bit late here, but Nancy, you've got such a great topic, and I really didn't want technical difficulties to be the only thing slowing us down tonight. So let's jump right in. Tell me a little bit about what you call the cuffing season and what that is.
Well, it's not even just what I call it, but this is a seasonal phenomenon. I actually had done a story for ABC Action News previously and found out all this incredible information about cuffing season. As the temperatures drop, singles actually cuff themselves to partners for the weekend. It's actually a derivative of handcuffing. When you chain yourself to another person for this cool season.
I love it. And one of the things that I remember when we first decided to have this conversation on live was that, you were explaining to me this is something that happens in just about every age group.
Yes. The term was actually coined by people in their 20s, singles in their 20s, who were just kind of looking for someone to watch Netflix and kind of chill with when it was too cold to go out drinking with their friends. So single girls and those born in the 80s or so were those who actually came up with this term, and it's really stuck, and it's very prominent in season. More and more people know about it.
And so let's kind of break it down for everyone that's watching and listening. We talked about the cuffing being a season, and it's obviously the winter season. So what are some of the effects that the winter season and cold weather has on our approach to dating?
Yes, it is so interesting, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to it as well. This seasonal phenomena during the fall and winter, those who would normally rather be single actually find themselves, along with the rest of the world, wanting to be cuffed or tied down. They start looking somewhere around mid-October when people actually look for that person they want to be cuffed with for the next few months. So somewhere around Halloween into Thanksgiving is when they're looking, and this gives them an opportunity to be with a person over the next couple of months, to cuddle with, to watch a movie with, to sit in front of the fireplace with during the cold weather, because a lot of times there's a lot more indoor activity, which causes singles to become more lonely and desperate, and they want to be cuffed.
Well, it makes sense. You see a lot of people pairing up right before the holidays. What actually happens with some of these relationships past the holidays once we start getting into the warmer weather?
Well, they feel this need to be cuffed during the cooler weather, and this need actually decreases in the spring and summer. And so when it rises in the fall and the winter, as they're looking for someone to kiss under the mistletoe or, take to their holiday parties, cuddle up to, Valentine's Day is, right around the corner, these people actually get connected, and they really feel that it's going to be more of a short-term relationship. That they're looking for someone that during this time they'll be less lonely when they're not paired. And what happens is, in some cases, this seemingly temporary relationship develops into a longer-term relationship because it strengthens as these people spend more time together. Thanksgiving, the December holiday time, New Year's, Valentine's Day. And if you make it through the cuffing season, there is an opportunity for the relationship to turn into long-term love.
And is there anything that you can give us as far as advice, Nancy, on how to kind of place the cards in your favor once this is going on? Let's say if somebody is in a relationship and they want it to continue past the cuffing season, are there any tips that you can give them to continue with the relationship?
A lot of times this is all done, without any thought. This just happens naturally and occurs naturally. So what I would recommend is people just treat it as a regular relationship. You might have started out thinking it was going to be a short-term seasonal type thing, but then you grow on each other, and then there's an opportunity for you to develop it into a long-term relationship, just like you would do any other relationship. So my suggestion is always, you never know what's going to happen, and you might not even be expecting it, but be open to the possibility, and you have an opportunity to potentially develop a very nice relationship with someone as you get to know them during this temporary time, and you might want to continue it longer and longer into a long-term, infinite relationship.
It strikes me funny, Nancy, because we all know, being in the industry of love, and I've got Jessica Fast just joined us live, and Lisa Sue here, that sometimes the winter.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Nancy.
But sometimes the winter season for us in this industry can drop off a little bit because people are busy with, their family and holidays and travel. But I see this as another reason why that could be going on, because people are getting into these relationships right before the holidays. And, I know from my 20 years experience that right after Valentine's Day is when I see the biggest boom in business, when there's the most people interested in matchmaking.
I think you're right. I think there's definitely, an opportunity. People kind of get settled with someone for this short term, and then all of a sudden they think that, maybe it's going to last, and maybe they'll try it a little longer, or what they'll do is they'll just cut it off. It's almost like those summer relationships when any of you have gone to summer camp, and you said, okay, I'm going to be with this person for the summer, but then it was kind of understood by both people. There was this mutual understanding that said, okay, come the end of the summer, when we go back to normal life, then we're not going to be in a relationship anymore. And so, it kind of simulates that type of experience. And so you're right, Denise, we do see a great pickup after Valentine's Day when people say, okay, now it's really time to do something. Because a lot of people I know, a lot of my clients are concerned about, Valentine's Day is coming. And some of them say, there are such expectations that go along with Valentine's Day that, I'd rather really find that somebody afterwards, so we don't have those false expectations going on, and we can just develop a relationship naturally.
Right, right. Now, you had mentioned in your notes, Nancy, and this was a really interesting point about how the temperature drops sometimes lead us to dropping our standards for relationships. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes. In this temporary time, since in your mind, at least initially, you're saying to yourself, okay, this is going to be a temporary thing just through the holidays. It's going to be a short-term thing. So who would I feel comfortable with just kind of cuddling up to, having a hot cocoa, a warm toddy with, watching Netflix, cuddling with. And so you might not be looking at all your criteria when you're looking for this person just to cuff with, the same way that you would if you were really looking for a long-term, committed, monogamous relationship. So you might have lowered your standards or changed your criteria or reduced your criteria and said, oh, you know what, this person and I can have a good time, just kind of hanging out together. Since we're going to be staying indoors most of the time, we can do these fun things together. We can play some board games. We can, watch movies. We can just kind of make food in the house and hang out and just have fun. But knowing in the back of your mind, or at least thinking in the back of your mind, that that's not going to be the long-term solution if you do want a long-term, committed, monogamous relationship.
Right, right. And I think too, the other point that you had made on your notes to me was that sometimes it's hard to separate our head from our hearts.
Yeah, sometimes what we know is right for us, and we see this not just during cuffing season, but really any time. Sometimes what you know is right for you, you sometimes overlook, and you reduce your standards or change your criteria, or say, you know what, I really like him or her. Or a lot of times what I've heard too from singles when I'm coaching them is about how they say, but he or she really likes me. And that's such an important part because it makes me feel so good to have that person in my life, and so they don't think about the other things. I once had a client tell me that he met somebody, and I said, oh, tell me about her. And he started off, his first sentence was, besides the fact that she's a Republican and a smoker, she's great. And when we got into talking about that, since I knew those were some of his non-negotiables, and I was very surprised to hear that, he was very, very specific on telling me how good she made him feel, how complimentary she was, how in love seemingly she was with him. So that made him overlook some of those things.
So really what you're saying is that it's the season for people to kind of take that list and cut it down a little bit and be a little bit more open with expectations, and sometimes it works out for the best.
Right. And you just have to have a combination of your heart and your head in the game here. You know, your heart initially will drive you one way or the other, and we know that. We know that the honeymoon period is kind of between, you know, the 3 month and the 7 month period of being with someone. And that's when we kind of overlook some of the negatives. But then after that, our head kind of starts coming in and said, you know, those jokes that were kind of cute for the past couple of months are really irritating. Or the way that that person's acting, you know, seems very, you know, intriguing at the beginning, but that's not something that I can live with in the long run.
That makes sense. It does. What are some of the things that, you know, people tend to do during this phase of the cuffing season, you know, where it's coming to the wind down now with, you know, the end of January here in Florida? It's starting to get a little bit nicer. You know, you and Lisa are both a little bit more south, so I'm not sure how much that really affects. But I know you're sitting there with your winter hat and your sweater and everything on.
I know it's I just got home.
Right.
It wasn't that cold, but in California it's cold. This is definitely cold. Yeah.
It is. But do you see a lot of this down in Tampa, Nancy, or is it something that's more so tied in with temperatures? Is it more seasonal or weather driven?
Across the board, it is definitely a seasonal thing, but I definitely see and feel the effects and hear about it from my singles in regard to the holiday time when they want to have somebody to take to the holiday parties, when they want to have someone to, you know, be with for New Year's. And they made a commitment, a resolution last year that they weren't going to be single, and they are again. So they're kind of scrounging to try to find that person. And again, with Valentine's Day coming right afterwards, it makes it difficult for someone who really wants to be in a relationship and is not.
Right. Now, are there any other things that you can give us as far as tips or advice for people who are at that point within their new relationship?
Well, I think you really have to evaluate the relationship and see if this is something that you are just in for the season, if you will, or go back to your original list of criteria and say, what is important to me? What can I not live with or live without? What are things that are so important to me that I know I will only be happy with these things? And then take a look at the relationship you're in and evaluate it. And if you know it's not right, if you know it was just for the season, then it's time to break it off and move on so you can achieve your goal of finding that special somebody. But if you say, hey, I wasn't expecting this, but there are a lot of criteria that he or she needs, and, you know, let me look at those criteria again. Let me look and make sure that those are must-haves in a relationship or must-not-have versus just preferences. And maybe you continue a little longer to evaluate whether it's something you want to continue with or not.
Right. That makes sense. It really does. And I think those are wise words for pretty much anyone who's in a new relationship, no matter at what point, really using the skills to evaluate what's important to you and what's not your deal breakers, really what you can live with and what you can't. And to be able to
Yeah.
spot those things pretty early on, I'm saying give someone a chance and get to know them, obviously, but to be able to spot them at a pretty early on point in the relationship is really a good skill to have.
Yes, and I think more and more people are realizing that they need to do this, whether it's just because they're working with experienced matchmakers like us, or they have been doing some coaching or therapy or whatever they have been doing. Hopefully they've been guided to the point where they need to sit down, be alone for a little while, and really figure out what's right for them. So make that list, review that list with friends, with family members. Really think about those things and say to yourself, with each of those criteria that you identify, can I not live with this or not live without this? Are these critical to my long-term happiness or not? And then identify each thing as either a non-negotiable or a preference. And you absolutely have to stay true to your non-negotiables. But some of those things that are preferences, you want the man to be 6 feet tall, or taller. You want the woman to be blonde, whatever those things are. Well, maybe you should reevaluate those and make those preferences, because maybe you'll be surprised at a person that comes into your life that might just fit the bill for you in the long run. But don't compromise on those things that you absolutely want in a relationship. If you want marriage and children, don't compromise and stay with someone who might not want children. If religion's important to you, don't compromise on that, because in the long run, it's not going to last. You're not going to be happy. If you're allergic to animals, then someone working for the SPCA might not be the best person for you to be with.
Jess and I were about to have a conversation this evening, actually, about one of her clients who is basically ending a relationship for something very minimal, for reasons. Obviously, I'm not going to break confidentiality here, but for reasons that for the most part, us as professionals would be like, no, that's being crazy. It's very insignificant. So I think it's really a double-edged sword, Nancy, when you think about it. We're basically asking people to use their brain and to think about these relationships smartly. And I want to make sure that we include that, because, it could go both ways. You could be overanalyzing it or overthinking it and coming up with the wrong reasons to terminate relationships.
That's true. So I think it's a matter of that person working with an experienced person, a professional, a certified matchmaker, somebody who can really help them evaluate, is this something that they're bringing in for a previous relationship or marriage, and is it really warranted? And in some cases, when the person really verbalizes what the reasoning is to that person, it is a non-negotiable. And so we have to be aware of that also.
Right. Jess, do you want to elaborate on any of this here? I know you've got your 2 cents to put in.
Sure. I love everything you guys are saying. Sorry, I got cut off there from my internet for a minute. Yeah, I'm dealing with this right now, as you said, Denise. It's like sometimes it can be a fine line of what's a preference and what's a non-negotiable. But in the case that we're talking about, it's just, it makes no sense. I'll give an example to it. We won't break confidentiality, but it's almost like wanting to break up because you have curly hair instead of straight hair. It's like equivalent to this reason, and it's just like it really takes another person, I think, like a professional matchmaker, Nancy says, to say, okay, do you understand that sounds crazy? That's not a reason not to be with someone, because if they have the same politics, the same religion as you, and they want the same things, like same number of children, and they have a similar lifestyle, like both people like to travel or both people are homebodies, like that's really, really hard to come by. And I can even speak from experience. Like my current boyfriend, it's his birthday today, so I'll say happy birthday to him. He, as a good example, I was supposed to spend the evening with him and take him out to dinner, and then he was like, "You're sick. You need to go home." I'm like, "I'm not that sick," but he's like, "Even if you have a little cold, you cannot sacrifice, your health for me." And like that is like, I've dated other guys that were selfish that would have been like, "Oh, you're not that sick. It's the sniffles. No, we can still go out for my birthday." So it's like, am I going to find a guy like him that would put my needs first all the time? No. It's, in this day and age where it's especially the millennial culture, it's a me society. To find someone like this is like a gem, and that we have enough to talk about. And don't get bored. And, because I always tell the clients, I live in LA, so I have a lot of people that want to date people based on looks. So Denise taught me this. It's like the porch swing test. Like, who are you going to still have things to say to when you're old and gray on the porch swing? Like, that's what it comes down to. And you don't know, if you're going to end up with someone who then loses their leg in a terrorist attack. One of my close friends and matchmaking mentors, he lost his leg in the Belgium terrorist attacks. Nancy knows him too. And, and now he has to live like this. And, and you don't end a relationship with someone because of this, something completely out of their control. You take them in sickness and in health. And what if you get married and your kid has Asperger's or ADD, or are you going to blame your wife? Like, or blame your husband, this came from your side, and then sometimes people develop mental illnesses and you don't know if, were they always like that? Was it society? Was it circumstance? So you don't know what life is going to give you. You just need to be with a partner that you have strong values and what you want out of life, because, and then life's going to throw you curveballs. So who can you like hit those curveballs with? That's a good analogy.
That's a really good point, Jess. And I always say it's not about finding the perfect person. It's about finding the one whose imperfections you can tolerate.
Oh, I love that line. I love it.
Did we lose Nancy here?
Oh, did you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Making sure.
No, and those were all really good points. And I think that, when a client is so specific, and, like in the case that you're talking about, when they don't think the relationship's right and they want to end it, we really have to understand why. We have to do a great job listening, even if we think it's totally irrational or, doesn't make sense to us. Sometimes there is something behind it that we really need to understand from their standpoint and help them either see that, maybe this is not as important as they think it is right now, or maybe it is to them, and then we have to just understand, respect, and honor where they're coming from, and move on and help them move on to the next person. Mm-hmm. It's a tough call. It really is.
That's true too, Nancy. Like we have to let them, let it go if it's really something that they're like, no, this is my non-negotiable, and there's nothing we can do about it. And Denise has a cute dog on camera right now.
I mean, you can try to understand, where they're coming from and why that is a non-negotiable for them, and whether, it's just like when people tell us what their criteria are, we have to honor and respect it. Not that it would work for us,
yeah,
but the relationship isn't for us. The relationship is for them, so they need to be the one dictating to us what is going to be right for them. And then we always pose and say, well, why is that so important? Mm-hmm. And that's how we can help our clients best.
That's good. Yeah. Why is that? Why is that so important? Just keep challenging them, so that, because maybe they didn't even realize why it was important. And maybe you scratch a deal breaker off the list. I did that recently for someone else. I scratched like 2 deal breakers off a list because I made them realize it wasn't so important.
And that's great. So just an understanding and pointing it out to the person and having that deeper conversation to help them understand and help us understand, so we can both work together. It's a very intimate process that we work through with them. And so there really has to be that open conversation and that questioning. It's almost like, with a child, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? And so we really have to dig with them.
It's true. And these are things that, people can obviously do when they're working with professionals like us, being matchmakers, but they're also skills that you can learn on your own. It's a matter of being honest with yourself and really figuring out the things that are important to you in an objective way. And sometimes, that might be speaking to some close friends, or, maybe even just putting it down in black and white on a sheet of paper. But these are things that if you're honest with yourself, you can actually challenge yourself and acquire the skills necessary to make it work.
It's an important growth opportunity, I think. And a lot of times people, we either see them when they get out of a relationship going to the opposite extreme and not even thinking about why, except that, well, the other one didn't work, so I have to go to the total opposite extreme. We see that a lot with the stars when they're with the good boys, and then they break up, and all of a sudden they're with the bad boys. And so they go and do a full 180 instead of really understanding what were the good things and what are the things that aren't right when I look for my next relationship. So a lot of times people don't take that time to really evaluate it. And that's why when you make your list and work through it, and whether you're doing online dating or working with a matchmaker's profile, whatever, or making your own list for yourself, it's really important for you to look at each, make the list, but then look at each one and really say, is this a must-have in a relationship, or is this just a preference for me?
Right. Well, Nancy, the last bullet point that you have on your list, I want to make sure I leave enough time for, because it's something that I believe in very much myself as well, which is have fun, live life to its fullest.
Yes, absolutely. Live, love, and laugh is one of my mottos, one of my sayings. Life is short. We all know that. We've all experienced that. We all see it, and we read it in the newspaper. We hear it on the radio. So how do you live life to its fullest? If you are so consumed in finding that perfect somebody, and that is your only reason for being right now, then you're going to miss life. You're not stopping to smell the roses. You're not enjoying the important things and the little things that are going on around you that can really make you happy. And if that is such an important part of your life and you feel that something is missing, and without having that special someone in your life, you're never going to be whole, then that is something that you need to work on first before you'll be able to be happy.
Very good point. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Nancy. I apologize for the technical problems. I'm not sure why we couldn't get you on video tonight, but at least we did get to enjoy your company. And of course, your time is always appreciated. You want to tell people how they can get in touch with you if they would like to?
Absolutely. And it was my pleasure. And thank you so much for chatting with me tonight, everybody. And if you'd like to call me directly, the phone number is 813-907-0410. You can visit my website at www.tampabaymatchmakers.com. That's matchmakers with an S. Or you can email me directly at Nancy, Nancy, at tampabaymatchmakers.com. And I would look forward to hearing from you, hearing your questions, and hearing how things are going, and hearing about your cuffing season. Did you cuff this season, and what happened?
And then Nancy also had a free gift to anyone who is listening. If you are to get in touch with her over the next day or two, she is willing to offer a 15-minute consultation for coaching to kind of figure out exactly where you're at, where you need to be, and how you're going to get there.
Absolutely. I'd like to help you move forward, achieve all your dreams, all your goals, and everything you deserve. So please feel free to contact me.
Well, thank you again for your time, Nancy. We appreciate you. And of course, you'll be receiving a copy of our video and your audio.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Nancy.
Thanks.